Ariana Cole drove her black luxury SUV down a quiet suburban road. The evening sun glowing across the smooth streets, she looked calm, peaceful, and completely unaware that her life was about to collide with a storm she did not ask for. Ariana was known across the state as a successful businesswoman, a billionaire who built her empire with patience and intelligence. But when she drove alone, dressed in simple clothes and wearing glasses, no one could guess her status. She liked it that way. She enjoyed normal moments. On this evening, she was returning from a charity meeting and wanted nothing more than to reach home, drink tea, and rest. But fate had different plans, just a few streets away. Officer Darren Knox sat in his patrol car. His record had a history of complaints, most involving racial profiling. Yet he still wore the badge with pride, believing he had authority over anyone he stopped. When he saw a black woman driving an expensive SUV, he narrowed his eyes. He muttered to himself, "No way this is her car." Without thinking twice, he switched on his sirens and pulled out. Ariana noticed the flashing lights behind her. She slowed down and parked calmly on the side. She had nothing to hide. She believed in respect. She believed in staying calm. Officer Knox walked toward her with a heavy, angry stride. He did not greet her. He did not introduce himself. Instead, he shouted, "License and registration." Ariana remained polite. "Of course, officer. Let me get them." But as she reached into her bag slowly, Knox's eyes filled with suspicion. He stepped closer and yelled, "Stop moving." Ariana froze. She raised her hand slightly to show she was no threat. Her voice was soft. "I am only getting my wallet." But Knox did not want to listen. He already decided she was guilty of something. He wanted control. He wanted to show power. Without warning, he kicked her leg, knocking her off balance. Ariana fell to the ground with a sharp gasp. The gravel scraping her hands, she was shocked, confused, and hurt. The officer shouted, "Stay down, don't move," as if she was a dangerous criminal. Ariana looked up at him, her voice shaking. "Why are you doing this? I did nothing wrong." But Knox ignored her. He looked at the SUV with hatred in his eyes. "People like you don't own cars like this," he said under his breath. Ariana's heart felt heavy. She had faced racism before, but never something as violent and unnecessary as this. Still, she refused to argue. She refused to let anger win. She slowly pushed herself up to her knees, her hands trembling. Knox stepped back and placed his hand on his gun. "I said stay down," he barked. Ariana lowered her head, not out of fear, but out of shock. She knew any sudden move could become dangerous. She took a slow breath and whispered, "This is wrong." What neither she nor the officer knew was that someone was watching. Not just any person, someone with authority far greater than Knox's badge. Across the street, inside a parked black SUV with tinted windows, a man observed everything with a calm but cold expression. His eyes followed every movement, every word, every action. He had seen this kind of behavior before, and tonight he had proof. He pulled out his phone and hit record, capturing the entire scene. Ariana being kicked, Ariana falling, the officer yelling, the disrespect, the abuse of power. His name was Samuel Reed, Director of Internal Affairs, the man responsible for investigating corrupt officers. And tonight, he was silently witnessing exactly the kind of behavior his department had been fighting for years. He continued recording while speaking into another phone. "This is Director Reed. Send a team to my location." Meanwhile, Ariana struggled to stand. The officer continued yelling commands she had already followed. Her hands were raised, her voice soft, her pain visible on her face. But she still carried herself with dignity. Even in the dirt, even after being kicked, she refused to lose her composure. Knox did not know who she was. He did not know she was one of the most powerful women in the city. He did not know his career was about to face a storm. He only knew what his anger told him. And that mistake would cost him everything, because this traffic stop was not normal. And the man watching from the SUV was about to change everything. The night was growing darker, the tension heavier. And Ariana's nightmare had only begun, but so had Knox's downfall. Ariana slowly lifted herself from the ground, brushing the dust off her clothes. Her hands trembled, but her expression stayed calm. She had learned long ago that losing control only gave people like Officer Knox more power. Still, deep inside, a quiet storm was forming across the street. Director Samuel Reed narrowed his eyes as he continued recording the scene from inside his tinted SUV. He had seen plenty of police misconduct in his career, but something about this moment hit him harder. Maybe it was the way Ariana stayed respectful even while being hurt. Or maybe it was the officer's bold arrogance in broad daylight. Whatever the reason, Samuel felt a familiar fire rising in his chest. Ariana looked at Knox again, her voice steady but soft. "Officer, please tell me why you stopped me." Knox scoffed. "You think I need to explain myself to you?" He looked her up and down with disrespect. Ignoring the pain he had caused, "Get back down on the curb. Sit where I can see you." Ariana obeyed slowly. She knew arguing might make things worse. She lowered herself to the curb. Her back straight, her dignity unbroken. Samuel zoomed his camera to capture the officer's face clearly. His voice was low as he spoke into his phone. "I want full backup here. Bring body cams ready to record everything." A second voice from the call replied, "Understood, sir. Sending a team." Knox paced around Ariana's SUV like a predator circling prey. He ran his hand along the door, pretending to inspect it. "This car is too expensive for someone like you," he muttered, not even trying to hide his prejudice. Ariana kept her eyes forward. Her breathing was steady, but her heart felt heavy. She had done nothing wrong, yet she was sitting on cold pavement, like a criminal. Knox finally turned back to her and said, "I'm going to search your vehicle." Ariana lifted her head slightly. "Officer, you don't have a warrant?" Knox leaned closer, his shadow covering her. "I don't need one if I have suspicion." Samuel's jaw tightened. He knew the officer had no legal grounds. No. He knew this was pure abuse of power, and he knew the world needed to see this. A passing family slowed their car. Shocked by the sight of Ariana sitting on the ground while Knox barked orders, they pulled out their phones and began recording too. Knox noticed and yelled, "Keep driving, mind your business." But the family didn't stop recording. Their presence made Knox even angrier. Ariana's voice remained calm. "Officer, please stop raising your voice." That single sentence snapped something inside Knox. He grabbed her arm roughly, forcing her to stand. "Don't tell me what to do," he growled. Ariana winced in pain but stayed composed. "You're hurting me," she whispered. Samuel had seen enough. He opened the door of his SUV and stepped out silently. His polished shoes touched the pavement without a sound. His tall, firm posture radiated authority. Knox noticed him and barked, "What do you want? Stay back." Samuel didn't answer. He simply raised his phone. Recording still active. Knox frowned. "Why are you filming? Stop that right now." Samuel's voice was calm. Dangerously calm. "I will not stop." Ariana turned her head slightly. Noticing the stranger for the first time, something about him felt different. He didn't look scared of Knox. He didn't look intimidated at all. The officer pointed at Samuel. "Move along before you get in trouble." Samuel took 2 slow steps forward. "The only person in trouble here is you." Knox froze for half a second. He was confused by the man's confidence. "And who do you think you are?" Samuel didn't answer. Instead, he held up a small silver badge with a black emblem. It reflected faint light from the street lamps. Knox squinted, but he still didn't understand the danger standing in front of him. "I don't care what badge you have. You're interfering with a police stop." Samuel lowered his phone and said, "I am not interfering. I am witnessing." Ariana felt a strange sense of relief in her chest. Whoever this man was, he was not scared of Knox. Knox puffed his chest, trying to regain control. "You're going to regret this." Samuel tilted his head slightly. "No, officer, you are." At that moment, Samuel's phone vibrated. He saw a message from his team. "We're 2 minutes away, sir," he responded with a single line. "Good. Be ready." Knox had no idea what storm was coming. He stepped back toward Ariana, trying to pull her by the arm again. But Samuel's voice cut through the air, sharp as steel. "Do not touch her again." For the first time, Knox hesitated. Something in Samuel's tone forced him to pause. Ariana slowly stood up straighter, feeling a shift in the atmosphere. The witness in the shadows was no longer in the shadows. He had stepped into the light, and he was about to change everything. Officer Knox tightened his jaw as he looked between Ariana and the mysterious man who dared to challenge him. The street was growing quieter, but the tension wrapped around the air like a tight wire. Anyone passing by could feel that something dangerous was unfolding. Ariana stood near her SUV, her hands still raised slightly. Her calmness was beginning to break internally, but she kept her posture steady. She did not want to give Knox any excuse to twist her actions into something threatening. Samuel Reed continued recording, his phone steady, his eyes cold. He had seen dozens of officers abuse their power before. But Knox's confidence and cruelty were on another level. The kick, the threats, the illegal search, the rough grabbing. Everything was on camera now. Knox puffed out his chest. "Trying to look powerful, sir. I'm giving you one last warning." "Leave the scene." Samuel didn't move. "This is a public road," he replied calmly. "And I have the right to stand here." Knox stepped closer. "You're interfering with a lawful stop." Samuel lifted a brow. "This stop is not lawful." The officer flinched at the tone. "You think you know the law better than me." Samuel's voice stayed calm like ice. Yes, Ariana's eyes widened slightly. She didn't know who this man was, but it was clear he was no ordinary stranger. He acted with the confidence of someone who had authority beyond a regular badge. Knox turned back to her suddenly. "Put your hands behind your back right now." Ariana blinked, shocked. "Officer." "Why are you arresting me?" "For resisting," Knox snapped. Even though she had done nothing of the sort, Samuel took a step forward. "She has not resisted." Knox raised his hand to silence him. "I don't need your opinion," but Samuel didn't stop. "And you don't have the right to arrest an innocent citizen without cause," Knox growled. His pride wounded, he grabbed Ariana's arm again. Gripping it harder than before, she winced, her breath shaking. Samuel's voice cut sharply through the air. "Let go of her now." Knox turned, furious. "Who are you to tell me anything?" A small crowd had started gathering on the sidewalk. People whispered, recorded, and shook their heads. Some recognized Ariana from the news, but no one dared to step closer. The tension rose higher when Knox reached for his handcuffs. Ariana took a small step back, tears beginning to form. Not from fear of the officer, but from the injustice she was enduring. Samuel spoke again. "Officer Knox, you are violating multiple laws." Knox spun toward him aggressively. "Say one more word and I'll arrest you too." Samuel lowered his phone and said quietly. "You can try." For a moment, Knox's hand moved to his cuffs, but something deep inside him hesitated. Samuel stood too straight, too confident. His posture didn't belong to a regular citizen. Then Knox made his biggest mistake of the night. He shoved Samuel with both hands, attempting to intimidate him. The crowd gasped. Ariana covered her mouth. Samuel didn't stumble. He barely moved. His face remained unchanged. His eyes locked onto the officer with a coldness that made Knox step back. "You just assaulted the wrong man," Samuel said softly. Knox looked suddenly unsure. "Who are you?" he demanded again. His voice smaller this time before Samuel could answer. A voice echoed from the end of the street, stern and unified. "Internal affairs." Step away from the civilian, Knox turned around. Confused and pale, 3 black unmarked vehicles rolled to a stop, their doors opening at the same time. Men and women in formal suits stepped out, each one wearing a badge clipped to their jackets. All of them moved with purpose. Ariana stared, her heart pounding. She realized the stranger wasn't just filming. He had brought a team, but why? And who exactly was he? Knox stepped back defensively. "What is this?" he yelled. "I didn't call backup." Samuel finally walked past Ariana, placing himself between her and the officer. "Because this backup isn't for you." Knox swallowed hard, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. His confidence began to crumble. The lead agent approached. "Officer Darren Knox." "Do not touch the civilian again." Knox's voice cracked slightly. "You can't just show up like this." "Who authorized this?" Samuel lifted his badge slowly, letting the streetlight shine on the silver emblem. "Internal Affairs Director." Ariana inhaled sharply. Knox stumbled back, his face draining of all color. Samuel said quietly, "I did." The officer's eyes widened in terror. His entire world began collapsing at that moment, and Ariana realized the truth. The man who watched everything wasn't just a witness. He was the authority the police feared most, and he had come for justice, not revenge. The night was no longer in Knox's control. It now belonged to the truth, and the truth stood tall in front of him, ready to expose everything he had done. The moment Samuel Reed revealed his badge, the entire street seemed to freeze. Officer Knox stared at the silver emblem as if it burned his eyes. His breath grew loud, uneven, and frightened. The bold confidence he had worn just minutes ago cracked open like thin glass. Ariana stood still, her heart pounding. She had never imagined that the quiet man watching from the shadows was actually the director of internal affairs. The one person who had the authority to investigate and remove officers who abused their badge. The suited agents formed a loose circle around the scene. Their steps were sharp, disciplined, and silent. They did not pull weapons. They did not shout. Their calm presence was more powerful than loud commands. Knox pointed a shaking finger at Samuel. "This is not your jurisdiction," he barked, trying to hold on to his collapsing pride. Samuel didn't raise his voice. "Officer Knox, everything that has happened tonight is under my jurisdiction." Knox's eyes darted left and right, searching for a way out, searching for someone to support him. The crowd kept recording. Cars slowed down. The streetlights cast long shadows that made the scene look even more dramatic. Ariana watched closely, noting the change in Knox. The man who had kicked her, grabbed her, yelled at her, and humiliated her now stood trembling like a child caught doing something wrong. Samuel walked forward slowly, each step calm yet full of authority. "You kicked an unarmed woman," he said. "You threatened her. You attempted to arrest her without cause. You assaulted me. And you violated multiple rights." Knox's mouth opened, but no words came out. His mind jumped between excuses, lies, and panic. But nothing felt safe to say. "Sir, I was just trying to control the situation," he finally stuttered. "What situation?" Samuel asked quietly. "A woman reaching for her wallet." Knox swallowed hard. "She moved too fast. The video shows otherwise," Samuel replied, lifting his phone slightly for the first time. Knox saw the camera clearly. It wasn't a regular phone recording. It was official high quality, time-stamped, and carried the weight of internal affairs behind it. Ariana took a slow breath, finally feeling a shard of relief cut through her fear. She wasn't alone anymore. Samuel signaled one of his agents. A woman in a navy blue suit stepped forward. "Agent Torres. Escort Ms. Cole away from the officer." Ariana blinked, surprised they knew her name, but then she realized of course they knew. She was a well-known figure in the state, even if Knox had refused to see beyond her skin color and simple clothing. Agent Torres offered her a gentle hand. "Ma'am, please come with me to a safe distance." Ariana nodded, walking with slow steps, her body still hurt from the kick, but her spirit felt stronger now. Knox watched her walk away, and for a moment, guilt flickered in his eyes, but it was swallowed quickly by panic. She resisted. He suddenly yelled. She tried to run. Samuel, raised a hand, silencing him. "Enough." The single word sliced through the air like a blade. Knox lowered his gaze, his voice shrinking. I didn't mean to hurt her." Samuel stepped closer until he stood only a foot away. "You didn't care if you hurt her," he said. "That is the difference." Knox's hands trembled. His fingers brushed the handcuffs on his belt. "The very tool he had planned to use on Ariana," Samuel continued. "Do you understand what you have done?" Knox shook his head weakly. "It was just a stop. It was abuse," Samuel corrected. "And now it will be accountability from behind." Another IA agent approached, carrying a small tablet. "Sir, the team has already pulled this officer's previous complaints." Samuel nodded. "Show him." The tablet screen lit up, displaying file after file, complaint after complaint, all involving excessive force, racial profiling, illegal stops, and intimidation. Knox stared at the list, as if seeing his own sins for the first time. Ariana watched from a distance, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and strength. Knox had treated her like she had no value, but tonight, he was learning the truth. Every action had consequences. Knox tried one last desperate attempt, sir. Please. I can explain. Samuel kept his voice firm. Explain it to the department after your suspension hearing, Knox gasped. Suspension? Samuel stared at him without blinking. That is the minimum. The officer took a step back, his breath shaking, his life, his career. Everything he thought was secure was slipping like sand through his fingers. Samuel looked toward the arriving cameras, news vans, and growing crowd. The public will want answers, he said, and they will have them. Ariana stood quietly, watching the man who hurt her slowly face the truth, and she knew this was only the beginning. The real storm had yet to fall, and Knox's downfall had only started to unfold. The sound of doors slamming shut echoed down the street as the internal affairs vehicles fully surrounded the scene. Their engines hummed like a warning. A signal that control had shifted completely. What moments ago felt like a lonely, unfair attack on Ariana was now turning into a full-scale investigation. Ariana stood beside Agent Torres, watching in silence as more IA officers stepped out of the unmarked cars. Each one wore the same calm expression, confident steps, and sharp focus. They didn't look at Knox with fear. They looked at him with purpose. Knox backed away from them slowly, his hands raised slightly, the panic now visible in every inch of his face. He stammered, I didn't do anything wrong. You're blowing this out of proportion? Samuel Reed walked forward, the crowd parting as if the air itself respected his authority. This is not out of proportion, Samuel said calmly. This is accountability. Ariana breathed deeply, letting the tension inside her slowly settle. For the first time since the confrontation began, she felt safe. The pain in her legs still throbbed, but her spirit felt stronger with every passing second. One of the IA agents approached Samuel and whispered, Sir, we've notified the department headquarters. Command wants a full report tonight. Samuel nodded. They'll have it. Knox looked between them, desperate. You don't understand. She was suspicious. She moved too fast. Samuel turned to him sharply. The video says otherwise. Knox clenched his fists, chest heaving. Why are you all here? Why send this many agents? Before Samuel could answer, another black SUV pulled up silently, this one different from the others. Larger, darker, its windows tinted even heavier. The crowd murmured as they tried to guess who was inside. Knox's eyebrows lifted in confusion. He whispered to himself, Who else is coming? The door opened slowly, and a tall, silver-haired man in a tailored suit stepped out. His presence alone made the street fall silent. He walked with the grace of someone who commanded entire rooms without raising his voice. Samuel stepped aside slightly as the man approached. Deputy Commissioner Hale, he greeted respectfully. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Even Ariana tensed in surprise. The deputy commissioner rarely came in person to any incident, especially not at night. But here he was, walking straight toward them. Knox's face turned white. Sir, I didn't expect. Hale held up a finger, a silent command for Knox to stop talking. And Knox obeyed instantly. Hale looked at Samuel first. I received your message in the preliminary video. Samuel nodded. There is enough evidence to begin immediate action. Hale turned his attention to Ariana, his expression softening out of respect. Ms. Cole, I deeply apologize for what you have gone through. Ariana swallowed, trying to remain composed. Thank you, she said quietly. Knox's eyes widened. You know her, he whispered aloud. Shocked, Hale did not answer him directly. Instead, he spoke to Samuel. Proceed. Samuel gestured for two IA agents to step forward. They approached Knox slowly, professionally, not with anger, but with authority. Knox took a step back. Wait, no, this isn't fair. I'm being targeted. I was doing my job. You were abusing your job, Samuel corrected calmly. Ariana watched the moment unfold, her emotions swirling, pain, relief, justice, disbelief. The agents lifted Knox's arms gently but firmly, guiding them behind his back. The cold click of handcuffs echoed across the street, the same handcuffs he had nearly used on her. The crowd murmured, recording every moment. Some people whispered, He deserves it. Others said, Finally. Someone is holding him accountable. Knox struggled weakly. Please, I have a family. I can explain everything. Samuel stepped closer. His expression unreadable. You had many chances to change your behavior. The complaints filed against you show a pattern. Knox blinked rapidly. Complaints? Yes, Samuel replied. And tonight, you added another one. The worst one. Deputy Commissioner Hale looked down at Knox with disappointment. I will personally ensure the investigation is fair and complete, he said, but based on what I have seen already, the consequences will be severe. Ariana's breath trembled. She wasn't spiteful, she wasn't celebrating. She simply felt the weight of justice being balanced for the first time in a long time. Knox was guided into the IA vehicle. His head lowered in defeat, the door shut behind him. Sealing the moment, Samuel turned to Ariana. Are you hurt? He asked gently. A little, she admitted. But I'm all right. Hale stepped closer, his tone respectful. Ms. Cole, we will escort you to a safe location and take your statement formally. Ariana nodded calmly. I'm ready, because she knew the truth. Tonight wasn't only about her. It was about every person who had faced injustice and stayed silent. And now, the world was finally watching. Ends with the street glowing under flashing lights, Knox taken away, and Ariana standing tall. A new chapter of justice had begun, and more was yet to unfold. The night air grew heavier as Knox sat inside the IA vehicle. His face was pale, his breath shaking, and his eyes unfocused for the first time in his career. He realized he was not the one holding power anymore. He was the one being judged outside. Ariana stood with Samuel and Deputy Commissioner Hale, while the crowd slowly dispersed. But the street was still buzzing with whispers. People replayed what they witnessed. Shaking their heads in disbelief as they walked away, some recognized Ariana immediately. Others learned her identity only after hearing people murmur her name. Ariana Cole, the youngest black billionaire in the state. The woman who funded education centers, legal aid programs, and police reform training. Knox had kicked her, yet Ariana remained calm, standing with quiet strength, not using her influence to shout or degrade the officer. Instead, she carried herself with dignity. Even after the humiliation she faced, Samuel approached her gently. Ms. Cole, please sit for a moment, Ariana nodded, lowering herself onto a nearby bench. Her leg hurt, her hands stung from the fall, but her mind was clear now. Clearer than ever, Hale stood beside Samuel, both men watching over her with protective seriousness. We will need a full medical check, Hale said softly. Your safety is our top priority, thank you, Ariana replied, her voice steady but tired. Meanwhile, inside the IA vehicle, Knox pressed his forehead against the glass. Watching everything outside, every step Ariana took, every calm conversation she had, twisted his stomach. He whispered to himself, a billionaire, a donor. They're all here because of her. His own arrogance stabbed him in the chest. He had treated her like nothing, assuming she was powerless, assuming he could dominate her without consequence. But now the world was watching. Samuel turned toward the IA agents. Secure the body cam scanners, pull his radio logs, and preserve every piece of footage we have. The agents nodded and moved quickly. They were preparing a case that would be impossible to escape. Knox finally burst out. You're doing this because she's rich, he shouted from the back seat. His voice muffled through the window. Samuel turned his head slightly, eyes cold. We're doing this because you violated the law. Knox slammed his fist on the seat. I was following procedure. Ariana looked up from the bench, her voice soft but firm. If kicking a woman who did nothing is your procedure, then maybe the problem is deeper than just you. Knox froze. Hearing her words through the slightly open window, Samuel stepped closer to him. She is right, he said. This is not about wealth. It is about actions. And your actions have consequences. Knox's chest heaved. I made a mistake, he whispered. Samuel shook his head slowly. No, Officer Knox. This wasn't a mistake. Your file shows a pattern. The agent with the tablet approached again. Sir, we have new updates. Samuel gave him a nod to continue. The agent turned the screen so Knox could see it through the window. Complaint after complaint showed up, people he had pulled over for no reason. People he had threatened. People he had humiliated. Some cases were still open. Others dismissed due to lack of evidence, but tonight, they finally had proof too strong to ignore. Knox swallowed hard. "That's not me. They're lying." Samuel leaned down. Meeting Knox's eyes directly. "All of them?" he asked quietly. "Every single person." Knox blinked, tears forming eye. "I was under stress." Samuel straightened. "Stress does not give you the right to abuse." Hale stepped forward. His voice steady and disappointed. "Darren Knox, you are suspended effective immediately. You will face a disciplinary hearing, and based on the evidence tonight, criminal charges are likely." Knox felt the world crash around him. His hands trembled as he whispered, "My career. My life. They're done." Ariana shifted slightly, feeling a strange mix of sadness and justice. She never wanted to destroy someone's life, but she also knew that silence only protected wrongdoing. Hale walked back toward her, his tone softer. "Ms. Cole, we will escort you to headquarters to review your statement." Ariana nodded and stood, wincing slightly as pain shot through her leg. Samuel immediately stepped beside her. "Take your time," he said gently. Ariana looked one last time at Knox through the car window. His shoulders were shaking, his pride shattered, his future uncertain. But she did not feel hatred. She only felt the weight of truth. Knox had built his career on intimidation, fear, and assumptions. Tonight, all of it collapsed under the light of accountability. As she walked with Samuel and Hale toward the waiting vehicle, the street remained quiet behind them. The flashing lights reflected off the pavement like reminders of the night's storm. Knox sat alone in the back seat, staring at the ground, replaying every moment in his mind. This time, he understood something he had never believed before. Power abused is power lost, and tonight he had lost everything. While Ariana, with grace and strength, was preparing to tell the truth the world needed to hear, Ariana Cole stepped into the back of the IA escort vehicle. The door closed softly behind her, shutting out the noise of the street, shutting out the flashing lights, shutting out the chaos she had endured. Inside the car, the atmosphere felt calmer, safer, but still heavy with the weight of what had happened. Samuel Reed sat in the seat across from her, his expression soft but serious. Hale rode in the front seat, speaking quietly into a radio as the vehicle began moving toward headquarters. Ariana leaned back gently, letting her breath finally steady. Her legs still throbbed, but her strength was returning little by little. Samuel studied her with quiet respect. "You handled yourself with dignity tonight." Many people would have reacted with fear or anger. Ariana gave a small, tired smile. "I didn't want to make things worse." "You didn't," Samuel replied. "Your calmness helped expose the truth." As the vehicle turned onto a wider road, news vans appeared like a wave. They tried to follow, their cameras flashing and their antennas rising like hungry machines chasing the story of the night. The IA vehicle did not slow. It continued forward with purpose. Inside the car, Ariana lifted her gaze. "They know who I am, don't they?" Samuel nodded lightly. "Most of the city knows your name. Some know you as a businesswoman, some as a philanthropist, and some as the woman who funds most of the police community programs." Ariana took a quiet breath. "I never wanted recognition, and yet you earned it," Samuel said gently. Meanwhile, back at the scene, Knox sat inside the IA car with his head in his hands. His thoughts spiraled, and each moment of the night replayed in painful flashes. A billionaire, he kept telling himself, a donor to the department. Someone his own superiors respected. Someone who had supported training meant to prevent exactly this kind of violence. And he had kicked her, humiliated her, and nearly arrested her without cause. He whispered into his palms, "My career. It's finished." The agents around him stood with cold professionalism. They didn't speak to him. They simply waited for orders. Knox wanted to scream, to argue, to run, but there was nothing left to defend. Everything he had done was captured, clearly, openly, undeniably, back inside the escort vehicle. Ariana stared out the window as they passed familiar buildings. Many of them were projects she had helped fund, youth centers, community shelters, small libraries. Each building brought back memories of teamwork, kindness, and effort. Tonight's violence felt like the opposite of everything she believed in. Samuel spoke again, his tone soft but direct. "I want to prepare you," he said, when we arrive at headquarters. "The media will try to speak to you." Ariana sighed. "I don't want to attack anyone. You won't need to," Samuel replied. "Just speak your truth," as the vehicle turned onto the secured road leading to headquarters. Another black car joined them. This one belonged to Ariana's personal security team. Two guards stepped out quickly as the vehicles parked, their faces filled with shock and anger when they saw her bruise. "Ms. Cole, what happened?" one guard whispered. His voice breaking, Ariana placed a calming hand on his arm. "I'm okay," she said softly. "I just need your support tonight." They nodded. Stepping behind her protectively inside the building, the hallways buzzed with controlled urgency. Officers stood at attention when Hale and Samuel entered. Some recognized Ariana instantly and stepped aside respectfully. Others whispered quietly, realizing the seriousness of the case. A conference room was prepared for her. A bottle of water sat on the table, and a medic waited nearby to treat her leg. Ariana sat down slowly, letting the medic examine her while Samuel arranged documents, body cam footage, and recorded statements at the same time. Knox was brought through a back entrance, his hands cuffed, his head lowered. He didn't fight anymore. He didn't argue. He walked like a man carrying a weight he couldn't lift. A senior IA officer read him his temporary suspension details. "You are hereby relieved of duty pending investigation." Knox didn't respond. His throat burned with shame. Hours passed. Evidence was reviewed. Reports were written. Ariana's full statement was taken. Every word she shared was calm, detailed, and honest. But the biggest shock came when Hale stepped into the room near the end of her interview. "Ms. Cole," he began, "I want to inform you that the footage of tonight's incident is now public." Ariana's eyebrows lifted. "Already?" "It spread fast," Hale replied. "Millions have already seen it." Ariana closed her eyes for a moment, letting the truth sink in. The world knew, the world saw, the world understood. When she finally opened her eyes, her voice was steady. "Then I will speak tomorrow," she said. "And I will speak for every person this happened to before me." Samuel nodded with pride. "The city will listen, because now they knew the truth." She wasn't just the victim of a racist police officer. She wasn't just a black woman mistreated on the street. She wasn't just a billionaire. She was a symbol, a voice, and tomorrow. The whole world would hear her. Morning light spread across the city like a soft golden blanket. But the world Ariana Cole woke up to was no longer the same as yesterday. The night's footage had exploded across every major news channel, social media platform, and streaming site. Millions of people watched the moment Officer Knox kicked her. Millions watched her hold her composure. Millions watched internal affairs swarm the scene like a storm bringing justice. Inside her penthouse, Ariana sat quietly at her dining table. Sipping warm tea, her legs still ached, but her spirit felt stronger than it had in years. Her phone buzzed. Non-stop messages from lawyers, reporters, activists, politicians, even strangers who thanked her for staying calm in a moment of violence. But Ariana didn't want attention. She wanted change. Her head of security stepped into the room. "Ms. Cole, Director Reed and the Deputy Commissioner are waiting downstairs." Ariana nodded. Setting her cup aside, today was not about her status or her wealth. Today was about speaking the truth in front of the world. She walked into the building's private lobby, where Samuel Reed and Hale waited. Both men greeted her with quiet respect. "Are you ready?" Samuel asked gently. Ariana inhaled deeply. Yes. They stepped outside to a controlled press area. Barriers lined the sidewalk, microphones pointed like arrows toward the podium. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, citizens gathered. Some held signs saying "Justice for Ariana." Others held signs saying "End police abuse." Ariana stood behind the podium, her security forming a protective circle behind her. Samuel and Hale standing on each side. The noise faded as she lifted her head. The whole city seemed to hold its breath. She began speaking, her voice steady and warm. Last night, I experienced something that too many people face every day, she said. I was stopped without reason, kicked without cause, and treated as if I had no dignity. The crowd grew quiet, deeply listening, but I was not alone. Ariana continued. There were witnesses who recorded it. There was a director who refused to look away. There were citizens who asked why. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle across the crowd like a heavy truth. No one should be afraid to drive their own car, she said. No one should be afraid of the badge that is meant to protect them. Behind her, Samuel lowered his eyes, knowing how true her words were. Hale held his hands behind his back. Standing tall but solemn, Ariana continued. I am grateful for internal affairs, for their fast action, for their courage. But what happened to me should never have happened in the first place. People in the audience nodded, some wiping tears, others recording every word. And this is not just about me, she said, her voice firming. This is about the people who were never recorded, the people who were never believed, the people who were ignored. A soft breeze moved through the microphones, carrying her message across the crowd. I am using my voice today because I can, Ariana said. But many people cannot, and that is why things must change behind the crowd. Police officers stood listening, some shifting uncomfortably, others nodding in agreement. Some had known Knox. Some had filed quiet complaints against him. Some had warned their supervisors years ago. Ariana lifted her chin. I will be funding new programs, independent training, accountability centers, community support designed to protect citizens and good officers. The crowd clapped, the sound rising like a wave when the applause softened. She continued, As for Officer Knox, I do not hate him. I do not want revenge, people murmured. Surprised at her grace, I want accountability, Ariana said. And I want him to learn, truly learn, why what he did was wrong at that same time. Inside a small room deep inside IA headquarters, Knox sat alone at a metal table. Handcuffed, his eyes were empty, his voice silent. He replayed her words on the small monitor in front of him. Her calmness made him feel smaller than any punishment could. He closed his eyes, the weight of his actions finally sinking in like a deep, cold shadow. Back outside, Ariana finished with a final message, one that would echo across the country. Power is not meant to be abused, she said. Power is meant to protect. The entire crowd rose to their feet. Clapping and cheering, her words carried across the city. Across the internet, across the nation, Samuel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder as she stepped down from the podium. You did more than speak, he said softly. You changed something. Ariana exhaled slowly, feeling both tired and whole. She didn't smile out of pride. She smiled out of hope. Because today, something shifted today. Truth stood taller than fear today. Accountability shined brighter than intimidation. And though the road ahead was still long, everyone who heard her knew one thing. Ariana Cole wasn't just a billionaire. She wasn't just a victim. She wasn't just a name in the news. She had become a voice that would not be silent again.